Alright, so now we're going to continue to talk about the adaptive immune system, and we just talked about the humoral branch, which is dealing with B lymphocytes, and now we're going to talk about the cellular branch, which involves T lymphocytes. And T lymphocytes work a little differently than B lymphocytes do. So B lymphocytes can recognize complete antigens. T lymphocytes cannot. They can only recognize fragments of antigens that are going to be presented to them. So T lymphocytes need antigen presentation. They absolutely have to have the antigen presented to them. And it can be presented to them in one of two ways. We have two different classes of antigen presenting cells. We have what I like to call professional antigen presenting cells and amateur antigen presenting cells. And our professional antigen presenting cells display a receptor or class of MHC called MHC class 2. All of our other cells have a receptor on their surface called MHC class 1. So professional antigen presenting cells are actually B cells, B lymphocytes, and phagocytic cells like macrophages or dendritic cells. So we're just going to say phagocytes. Now, when these classes of cells, the professionals, when they present their antigens to the T lymphocytes, they are not sick. They have engulfed the antigen, chewed it up, and they have put a piece of it out on their MHC class 2 receptor. However, when MHC class 1 cells, all right, which are basically all nucleated cells, sorry, I'm running out of room here, cells, when they present an antigen to a T lymphocyte, they are actually sick, okay? They are a cell that's saying something is not right with me. I'm virus infected, I'm cancer infected, so I'm going to take a piece of the antigen and put it out on my MHC class 1 receptor. These cells are actually sick. So why am I saying that? Because there's a difference between an endogenous antigen and an exogenous antigen. So, exogenous antigen or endogenous antigen. So an exogenous antigen is an antigen that originated on the outside of a cell. It did not come from that cell itself, okay? And they are going to be found on MHC class 2 receptors that are on professional antigen presenting cells. Those cells are not sick. Phagocytic cells, B lymphocytes, are going to take in exogenous antigens. They're going to display it on their MHC class 2 receptors, which are going to be recognized by a specific type of T lymphocyte. Endogenous antigens, endo, came from within that cell. That cell itself is sick. They get displayed on something called MHC class 1. I'm just going to put 1 there. 1 receptors. And they can be displayed on all nucleated. I don't have enough room for that. We'll just say all other cells. They're not professional antigen presenters. So these cells themselves are cancer-infected, virus-infected. The antigen came from inside of them, and they display it on their MHC class 1 receptor. Now, I'm going to take this a step further. We have different types of T lymphocytes. So we have different types of T lymphocytes. We have naive T lymphocytes that are called Cd4 cells, and we have another type called Cd8, okay? Naive Cd4 cells recognize MHC class 2 receptors, which display exogenous antigens. When they recognize foreign antigens on MHC class 2 receptors, they will end up becoming helper T cells. Helper T cells do not directly go out and kill other cells. I told you that the helper T cells are like the mom, and then everybody was like, well, I organize. Well, they are like the mom that's going to organize everything, and they're going to enhance the overall immune response. They're going to make sure everybody's doing everything that they can to fight off this germ. They're going to cause B lymphocytes to produce more antibodies. They're going to cause phagocytes to become hungrier, to do more antigen presentation. They're going to ramp up fever, inflammation, things of that nature. So the helper T cells are going to be the quarterback or the conductor of the entire immune response. Then we have Cd8 cells. So naive Cd8 cells, which again, naive means they have not been exposed to a germ before, are going to recognize class 1 MHC receptors or proteins, which display endogenous antigens, so all of your nucleated cells. Once they go through this process, they are going to become cytotoxic T cells. And these are killers, okay? They are going to recognize antigens and destroy them. They're going to secrete chemicals called perforins and granuzymes and cause cell membranes to lyse and bust open, okay? This is why we have this kind of checks and balances in place in order to not have crazy immune responses or, cell-to-cell combat occur without making sure, yeah, it's me, okay? So, the antigen-presenting cells have to say to the CD4 and the CD8 cell, yeah, okay, it's me, I'm you, I'm on your team, but I'm also saying to you there's a bad guy on board. So this is kind of a checks and balances system that goes on. So in this slide right here, we are seeing our two different types of naive cells, our CD4 cells and our CD8 cells. They are going to recognize different classes of MHC. CD4 are recognizing MHC class 2. CD8 recognizing MHC class 1. These are professional APCs have MHC class 2. And they display exogenous antigens, so antigens that come from the outside. This will end up causing helper T cells to be created down here. There's also going to be some memory cells made as well. When CD8 cells recognize MHC class 1 that are found on, this can be confusing here, amateur antigen-presenting cells, they also display endogenous antigens, so antigens that are coming from the inside of that cell. They are going to end up making cytotoxic T cells as well as memory cells. These are the quarterbacks of the entire immune response. These go into cell-to-cell combat to actually kill cells. All right, so in this top one here, it is showing that endogenous antigens are being processed and displayed on MHC class 1 receptors. So this antigen started from the inside of this cell, okay? And it's going to be broken up and then put on the MHC class 1 receptor, which is going to be recognized by Cd8 cells. This one down here is showing exogenous antigens that are being brought into the cell via phagocytosis. It's chewed up, it's put on the MHC class II receptor, and then shown out here. And this will be recognized by CD4 cells that will end up becoming helper T cells. Hopefully this makes sense to everybody.